and welcome back to All Routes Considered. My name is Joey Stoat, and thankfully this time I am joined once again by my favourite co-host and all-round good egg, Tiana May, who has just returned from her travels across the US. Tiana, how are you? What's going on?
Hey, yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm pleased to be home, I think. Obviously, like when I'm traveling, it's lots of flights, buses, trains, kind of constantly on the move. It's quite nice just to be home, back in sunny England. It's very nice. A bit too hot, if anything. Yeah, and just chilling at home, waiting for my next foster cat. Obviously, Sheba, who some of you may have met last time I was on this. She's gone off. She's living her best life now in a nice home on the edge of Dartmoor. So I'm waiting for my next foster cat, who's going to be called Shadow.
Shadow. Oh, that's a great name for a cat. I like that.
He's not black though. He's tabby.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. You hear
Yeah,
Shadow and you think he's going to be black. I don't know. I don't know. He's like come already with his name from his past life.
yeah.
Yeah. So he has a few behavior problems. So they've been kind of waiting for me to get back to rehome him with me because I specialize in cats who, yeah, like to bite,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Tiana the cat whisperer makes total sense to me. I mean, any animal. I've never known someone who's like so good with animals as you. It's crazy.
I do love animals. Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Uh,
I tell you what else you love is events in the US, seemingly.
I
So,
do. Yeah.
so tell us about them.
Yeah, so I only attended a couple of events this time. I had a slightly shorter trip than usual due to some family stuff in the UK. But I went to AutoSense and In Cabin, which are kind of automotive focused events on like technology for like interior and exterior sensing. And they used to be two separate events, and they've really come together now, which I feel is kind of really relevant to the trends you see in this technology, where there's this kind of new focus on driver monitoring and advanced driver assistance technologies working together now and kind of enhancing each other. So we're not just looking at what the driver's doing and then separately what's going on the road. The two can really complement each other to unlock these new features and capabilities. And yeah, it was kind of really interesting seeing what's new, what the engineers are talking about. And although like automotive isn't really my, top area of kind of expertise or interest, I find it really interesting how these technologies are sort of shaped in the automotive sector and then can be, trickled out into like other modes. So you've got like, obviously this driver monitoring and everything, making sure the driver is able to drive, isn't fatigued or intoxicated. That then kind of translates really well into the bus sector. When you get your National Express coach or whatever, it's quite reassuring to this coach load of passengers that this driver that they don't know is fit to drive. So yeah, I find it really interesting how maybe the automotive sector has more development or money to like feed the innovation than something like the bus sector. But then these technologies are developed for that sector. And then we see them in the press releases and news and editorials that we write about other modes of transport too. So I find it really valuable to include the automotive sector in what I do in order to get the big picture of what is transport and what is the future of transport.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really good. And then I also attended the APTA Rail conference in Baltimore. So obviously that was focused more on the rail industry, so kind of back into the public transport sector. And that's kind of taking place against this backdrop of the IIJA funding coming to an end, which those of you who know about transit know that it kind of really unlocked historic levels of funding for public transport and rail across the US. And obviously with that coming to an end and these new reauthorization plans and the Build America Act that came out recently that we wrote about, I mean, they aren't providing what we in the industry would deem sufficient levels of funding for transit. So this event had to really have this focus on what are they going to do about it? Like, where are there alternative streams of funding from like local or state sources? How can we kind of cut unnecessary cost drivers in delivering rail projects, and what like delivery models and things like that do we need to look at? Because obviously rail projects are something that need to happen in the US, and we've talked about this in a past episode we did about California high-speed rail and kind of the real benefits that it can unlock. And without the kind of federal funding that maybe countries in Asia and countries in Europe get, the US is struggling to see how they can deliver that. So that was kind of really interesting for the event to happen against that backdrop this year. And then I just generally had a good time exploring transit options in the US. I got various trains, buses. I actually flew into Toronto and then got a bus down to Windsor and then a cross-border bus into Detroit for AutoSense. And then I did do a bit of flying. I spent a bit of time in Utah. I went to this town called Logan, which you probably haven't heard of, but really good bus network. Like one of the best bus networks I've traveled on recently, like anywhere in the world. Really reliable, frequent, good span, air conditioned. We don't have that on our buses here. I got a bus into Exeter the other day, no air conditioning for like the hour and 20 minutes I was on it. And with this current weather, that was not ideal. So yeah, I really missed my American buses, which is something I wouldn't think I would say, because normally like I don't rate like American buses as being up there as a global standard. But yeah, anyone who ever goes to Logan, Utah, ride their buses. They're also free. I love free public transport. So obviously like I got it loads, even if I just like wanted to go to the supermarket, which was like 25 minutes of like walk away from where I was. I was like, I don't want to walk in the heat. I'm just going to hop on the bus. It's free. So yeah, really great. Obviously makes it accessible for everyone. And yeah, I totally loved it. So I had a little rant right now about how much I loved it. Yes, but what about you anyway, Joey? You also, since we last spoke, went to an event in London, I believe, the International Railway Summit. How was that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can tell you that the tube wasn't air conditioned. Other than that, no, yeah. So yeah, it was what was it? Early last month, I think. I went along to the International Railway Summit in London, which ended up being a pretty insightful conference program, actually. The agenda itself was mostly focused on, digital transformation, high-speed investment, cross-border operation. It was a fairly comprehensive program. Rail Minister made a fairly, brief appearance to chat about GBR, as he is wont to do. There was a pretty interesting talk from a senior representative from Ukrainian Railways who basically just sort of gave insight into how important the railway there has become as far as the ongoing war effort, which also led into another panel discussion, which was about Europe's ongoing preparation for military operation and sort of how best to secure those lines of defence. But yeah, like the conference as a whole offered a lot of insight into, formation of GBR, ticketing policies and how unified platforms, may or may not benefit the end user. The benefits in integration and, potentially somewhat controversially, the benefits of privatization, and just a whole lot more. So yeah, it was a really interesting event and definitely want to chuck in the diary for next year for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Does it happen in a different city every year? Like a different worldwide location?
I think it
I don't think
does.
it's always
Yeah.
in London, is it? No.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So you
I
might be
think
signing yourself up. You're like, let's put it in the diary for next year so that you can go off to Tokyo or something. That'd be cool.
well, I mean, I certainly wouldn't say no. It might be. I might have an air-conditioned train there.
I reckon you probably would. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We
It
need
might.
to ride Asian trains at some point. Like,
Yeah.
um, I don't think either of us have really, that's not something we've done. But obviously, like at all these events that I go to, it's often kind of a comparison or a standard that's put out there of like, okay, how can we compare the US to what they're doing in, say, Japan?
Yeah.
And they often have speakers come from these different countries. But yeah, I've not actually experienced that firsthand, which I think would be cool.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'd really like to sort of see. I mean, I've only really ridden trains in England and Belgium now, so maybe I should probably
Yeah.
get out there and try some more trains and see if they actually have any kind of cooling facility rather than a
Mm.
window that someone slams shut as soon as the wind starts.
Yeah, let us know, audience, good listeners, if there's any
Yeah,
trains that you feel we should ride, like anywhere in the world, send me to Hawaii or something.
yeah, yeah. Quite
Yeah, tell me to,
specifically,
yeah.
if it's somewhere really, really nice, just
Yeah, yeah.
if you could just say that the trains are great, that would be really good for us.
Or if the trains are terrible, that's kind of interesting too,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
show us a train network that's not working. That's,
yeah,
interesting to
yeah.
check out. If it's in a beautiful place, we'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. So this time we've actually got another interview lined up, haven't we, Tiana? We have another bit of a special treat for you. Tiana, would you like to tee this lovely chat up for us?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, when I'm in the US, I don't just take public transport, I do also fly. And in a country like the US, kind of domestic flights are often like a major way of domestic travel and, of course, international travel. So last time I went to the US, I actually had the fortune of being able to check out Pittsburgh International Airport's new terminal while it was being constructed. So I was there in June and it opened in November. So it was kind of a really good stage where it was still an active construction site and I got to see how it was being put together, but I could also kind of see what the finished product would look like. It was very, evident. I could feel for myself these like open spaces and high ceilings with these, impressive branch-like structures. So that was really cool. And then we obviously wrote about the launch and the opening and stuff last November when it opened, but I haven't had the chance to go back yet. But the CEO of Pittsburgh International Airport, Christina Cassotis, she was kind enough to do an interview with me, which we are going to share with you, about the new terminal, the airport's microgrid, which is kind of really important for like energy resilience, and then also future initiatives looking at sustainable aviation fuel and things like that. So we got to talk a little bit about what Pittsburgh's done and kind of the model that presents for future airport projects all over the US or internationally. So that was really interesting. So yeah, we'll go into a chat now with Christina Cassotis, CEO of Pittsburgh International Airport. Well, thank you, Christina, for taking a bit of time today. I appreciate it. It sounds like you've had a busy day.
Well, they're always busy. There's no such thing as not busy at an airport. So I heard you were here for a tour a while ago.
I was, June 2025. So yeah, a whole year ago.
Come back and see it.
Yeah, I know, right? I've seen lots of like images and stuff since, but it would be great to kind of see how it's transformed. Has it been a success?
It's been a phenomenal success. Yes, we opened on day one without hitch, which was always the goal. We wanted day one to feel like it wasn't day one for anybody who works here. You know, that we worked really hard on making sure that our team, as well as every badge holder here, had a really good understanding of everything from where to park to how to log in, and how to answer questions. And it was a very successful day one. And it's, we're still working through a punch list, but we're doing really well. Thank you.
No, that's great to hear. So yeah, it'd be great to talk a little bit about kind of this idea of reimagining the airport around like today's passengers compared to like kind of the legacy infrastructure that you previously had, and kind of how the terminal can then become an example for like airports nationally or globally to really optimize aging infrastructure. So like at the moment, kind of when you walk through this new terminal, what tells you that you've sort of achieved something more than simply a new building?
Well, there's a lot of space. There's space. It does not feel crowded. The ceiling is high, and we have an opening from the departures level through to arrivals. So you have the ability, with this very high ceiling and the rolling roof. The rolling roof has created an opportunity for clear story lighting, natural light to come through. So what you'll see instantly is it just feels better. It feels like a space that it works intuitively. You know where to go because the wayfinding is very intuitive, the layout is intuitive, and it feels pleasant and lovely. It doesn't feel crowded. It doesn't feel, even when it's really busy, we've left space, especially on arrivals. If you think about a whole bunch of flights arriving at once and coming through, the security doors. Once you get out, there's plenty of room for meeters and greeters to find you and for the Love Actually reunions to take place without feeling like you're being squished. We were very intentional about creating space and creating opportunities for people to gather and for people to get what they need without getting in their way. So I think you would feel that. And that's what I hear over and over again from people. I get a lot of DMs on my LinkedIn from people I've never met who say, I grew up in Pittsburgh and I can't believe what you've done for my hometown. And by you, they mean all of us, not just me, obviously. But I actually got 3 this weekend. It's actually it's lovely.
Yeah, that's really nice that like you get that feedback as well. Like people appreciate you in the kind of the position of leadership.
Well, but they really appreciate the output. What they really appreciate is that, this obviously took a whole team and a whole community and an industry. I mean, at the end of the day, the way that we're structured in the US, the airlines really do have to agree to the improvements because of the way that we're funded. So doing this in conjunction with the airlines, their support and their input has been key.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. And I can definitely appreciate everything what you're saying as someone who travels a lot. Like narrow corridors are just not pleasant. And very much give you the perception of how nice the airport is how much space to walk around it.
That's even, like I said, that's even, at the peak. So we were also able to consolidate 2 separate checkpoints. So there's only 1 checkpoint now. That may seem very, like table stakes if you're starting from scratch. but to your point, to rehab aging infrastructure and make it work, to keep the best and then improve what needed to be improved in a way that really meaningfully changes the experience for everybody has been the goal. And I would say we're meeting it.
Yeah, I mean, from all the airports, we're getting so much data in terms of the number of passenger, and the passenger demand is going up, up and up, and kind of the projections for, 2040, 2050, they're significantly greater than where they are now. Is that kind of, how do you sort of balance that with improving like operational efficiency and like prioritizing the passenger experience? Do they kind of come hand in hand, or is there kind of optimization versus capacity?
That's a really good question, and I've never heard it asked that way, so well done you. I would say that if you actually do improve the passenger experience, you are optimizing.
Okay.
I really believe that when you start with optimizing and you don't start with the people who are using it, and I mean using it by either traveling through it or working in it, right, or partnering with it, if you don't start with what makes sense for the people who need the facility to work for them, I don't think you can optimize efficiently. I think you end up creating inefficiencies because then you have to backpedal and retrofit in, oh yeah, we can't do this because it doesn't work for people. I think that the great optimization that I see starts with, what do we need to have happen? What's broken? What are the pain points? And how can we efficiently fix them? If you are going to talk about just straight up placing motors with predictive maintenance, you still have to make sure that the way that that notification happens, the way that staff understands their role that's a part of the efficiency, is that people get it from the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess then it's kind of, so looking at this outlook, how have you sort of designed the infrastructure to ensure it kind of won't become outdated again in 20 years' time?
Yeah, so we built a lot of flexibility into the design. We built flexibility so in 1992, the airport that we were rehabbing had opened in order to become the largest connecting hub for an airline called US Airways. You might be too young to remember them, but in 2004, they canceled their leases and basically walked away from the infrastructure that they had insisted be built according to their specs. So we have been an origin and destination airport since 2004, but it wasn't until I got here in 2015 that the community stopped wanting to be a hub again. It's not that we wouldn't love to be a hub. It's that you don't get to wish it. The industry has to respond and say, this is where we're going to, base all of these operations. So we have left flexibility that if a hub were to come back, there's master planning that allows us to add gates. There's no problem with that. If the local population were to triple and all of a sudden we had a lot more O&D demand, we can add more security checkpoints, we can add more parking. There's more we can do. So we built flexibility into design, and I mean like big solid infrastructure design. And then the rest of it is, it's our job as leaders and as stewards of the infrastructure to make sure that we are keeping up with whatever it is that passengers and staff and crew and meters and greeters and partners need in the facility. And then we've got to find a way to make it work. That's our job.
Yeah, that makes sense. On this kind of topic of future resilience, I'd also love to touch on your microgrid, which I believe has been providing power to the airport since 2021, yes. Allowing you to kind of generate your own electricity independently from the regional grid, which is quite a big deal, like fully for the airport. So can you tell me a bit more about this and kind of how the decision came about and whether it's been delivering the benefits you expected?
Sure. 2017, LAX lost power for a couple of hours. It was a big deal. And LAX is a huge airport with lots of spokes and lots of dependencies. So the industry definitely felt it. In 2018, Atlanta, which is the busiest airport in the world, went down for 8 hours.
Oh, wow.
At the time, we were in the middle of our master planning process, and we were looking for opportunities to make sure that if the airlines were going to read about us, it was going to be for good things, not because we were we were trying to rebuild our reputation in the industry, and we really didn't want to be known for screwing up the system at some point. We are in Pennsylvania. We sit on top of the largest natural gas deposit in the United States. It's called the Marcellus Shale. And prior to me getting here, there had been a contract for a company to extract natural gas on site. So if we're going to be pulling gas out of the ground at the airport, it seemed like it might make a lot of sense to put it to use for the resilience of the airport, given that the industry was clearly facing some challenges and that the grid is facing challenges. I mean, if we're not just looking at what are we as an aviation industry being, what's important to us technically, we're looking at what impacts us. So we actually thought, well, why don't we make ourselves site-hardened infrastructure? There's a lot of talk about that in those days, about site-hardened infrastructure globally. And we did a lot of research. We put out a request for qualifications. And what we said is, we're interested in a public-private partnership. We were not going to, we don't want to build it. We don't want to run it. We run airports, not utilities. So we spent about a year doing research and then put out a request for qualifications and just said, you must deliver enough energy to support the aviation operation, and it must include diversified sources of energy. In other words, we wanted to build diversity into the supply, right? The backup supply. So it's 5 natural gas turbines providing 20 megawatts of electricity a year. And then we have solar generating another 3. That's about to double and go to 6. We located the solar farm on our property, about 10,000 solar panels. And it's the first time in our state that solar was permitted to be located on a former landfill. So the company that owns the microgrid generates about 23 megawatts of power a year. We use about 14, and they sell the rest back to the grid. So yes, it has delivered cost savings. It's delivered carbon reduction, and most importantly, the first goal was resiliency.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, obviously Heathrow went out last year, which obviously was big news here and in general, and kind of has really sparked this kind of discussion of what is the backup plan. Have any other airports in the US followed suit, or is this something that is unique? No, interesting.
We've had a lot of visits, We've had visits by airports and airlines. And interestingly, 2 weeks before Heathrow lost power, we had the same issue with a fire at a substation. And our microgrid kicked into island mode, the lights flickered, and nothing happened. So, we feel really strongly that this is our responsibility, is to make sure we can operate no matter what. We all work very hard in snowstorms. We all work very hard in difficult weather conditions to make sure we're doing everything we can to make sure that planes can take off and land, and that people can get where they need to go, and that we're a large transplant center here. We have a number of, this was the first heart-lung transplant center in the United States. There's a lot of there's a lot of healthcare innovation in this region. And there are a lot of organ transplants that come in on airplanes. Oh. So we wanted to make sure that, that we were staying open, and that everybody was going to get what they needed. That was actually a really big motivator for us, is to take care of our region, is to take care of, that industry and the people who rely on it.
Yeah, wow, that's a really crucial consideration that I wouldn't have thought of. Yeah. And then I understand you're also exploring SAF production for sustainable aviation fuel. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So what kind of convinced you that this was also something worth pursuing? Well,
we're always looking at, how can we partner with the airlines, manufacturers? How do we, as part of an ecosystem, do our part? And there's a lot of energy innovation in Pittsburgh that goes back to Edison and Tesla. I mean, Pittsburgh has a remarkable history of innovation in a lot of industries, energy being one, none of which I knew until I moved here, just to be clear. And so we had finished the microgrid, and it was operational, and it was working, and we got a lot of interest from, as I said, from airports and airlines around the world. And then, because we knew that SAF was a big priority for IATA, for member airlines, there were mandates coming out of some countries that we had service to and wanted service to. We just thought, well, let's look at this. Let's see if we can make this work. We sit on a massive piece of land here. We're on 3,400 hectares. And so to set aside a small parcel of land to build a SAF plant is not It's not going to hurt us, number one. And number two, we have a pipeline to the river that brings our Jet A up today. Okay. Meaning we could export fuel if we needed to. And none of this is easy. You have to make everything work. Mm-hmm. And we sit in the middle of millions of acres of bio-based feedstock. In the US, we don't have a food versus fuel issue because we have so much land that this is, so we were looking at ethanol in the beginning, but the fuel that we are hoping when this does work, that the fuel supply, the fuel technology is out of Swedish biofuels. It's ASTM certified and it can take any feedstock. So we were really looking for diversity in the feedstock. We were looking for, partners who could help us build this, and we were working on offtakes right up until the beginning of this year when everything changed for the industry. So we're ready to go. We've got land set aside. We've got engineering getting done, planning, partners in place. It's really just a question of time, I'd say.
Nice, yeah. To say you've got the land, that's something I don't often hear from airports. Yeah. I often hear, I guess maybe being in the UK and Europe, that airports don't have land. It's such a kind of a restriction of we can't get bigger because we haven't got the space. So that's kind of like a nice luxury kind of that you've got and kind of positions you well for these future technologies or future expansions, or that feels like a good position to be in. Where do you see kind of airports having a responsibility generally when it comes to decarbonising aviation? I mean, historically, you guys provide the infrastructure, airlines are responsible for flying the aircraft. So kind of where does it kind of begin and end in terms of, where the responsibility lies?
I mean, we have a responsibility to make sure that we are running. I always say that, sustainability starts with, can you continue to run your operation, period? Do you have enough workforce? Is there workforce sustainability? Is there fiscal? Is there financial sustainability? Obviously, is there resource sustainability? So I think, we all have a responsibility as business and as public infrastructure to make sure we're running sustainable operations, right? And I mean like capital S, sustainable. And one of the ways to do that is to make sure that we're using our resources properly. I don't know that there's a hard line between airports, airlines, and I think we all need to be working together a lot better. Yes. And I think that by saying this is my job and that's yours is not going to get us anywhere. And it hasn't. Believe me, engines are, more efficient and aircraft is more efficient. So I think that people are doing what they can to maximize in their areas. But I think that when we work together, there's even more opportunity. And that's what we're looking for opportunities to do, is to really work with our partners in the airlines and to see, in the region who can help us think differently and deliver more value back to the region and back to the industry. And then that becomes a virtuous loop, right? Where then we benefit too. So it's really, how do we think differently?
Yeah, that feels like a good outlook. So just finally then, kind of to wrap up, kind of if we were having this conversation again in 10 years' time, what do you hope that Pittsburgh International Airport's known for?
Oh my gosh, that's the second great question you've asked. In 10 years, I would hope that Pittsburgh is known for having been fearless in exploring where the airport could go and who it can work with in order to really to deliver more value than anybody expected to the region and to the industry. I hope in 10 years I'm walking through thinking, oh my gosh, I never would have thought of that. Isn't that great? I really hope that that's how I really hope that that's what's going on. I hope it continues. I hope that, that I land at other airports and I see, suites of sensory rooms. And I hope I understand that there's a microgrid running their infrastructure. And I hope that, I see more spaces where everybody can navigate easily. That's what I really hope, is that there's an impact on the industry and that it continues to be felt here.
Nice. Yeah, I hope so too. That sounds great.
Thanks. Great questions. I appreciate this, Tiana. Great.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. I will let you go and drink your coffee and hopefully, have a moment in your busy day. But thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
So we'll see you again, I hope. Yeah.